mayor really wants to fix it up himself, they're going to do that. Is this what Trump hopes happens in pretty much every city?
The president hopes, and I've said this so many times, and I think the president's conversation with the San Francisco mayor last night and his statement today prove the president is willing to work with anyone across the country to do the right thing and clean up America's cities. He is genuinely interested in this effort to make our streets safer, to make our cities safe and clean again. And he heard from the mayor last night, who told him that he is going to earnestly try to make his city better on his own. The president heard him out. He said, okay, I'll give you a chance. We'll be watching, and if you need us, we are here. And if I feel as though you continue to fail your citizens, the federal government may have to step in. But we'll continue to watch San Francisco, and that law enforcement operation has now been paused.
Thank you. And then on the No Kings protesters, I saw videos of people explicitly calling for violence against Stephen Miller, against the president, shirts saying we don't have enough assassins, calling for more political violence. Does the president want to see arrests here, and are we going to see arrests of these types of explicit calls to violence?
I would think myself, the president, and everyone here at the White House certainly hopes that anyone who is making violent and illegal threats in that way against public officials will be arrested and prosecuted. Sure.
Thank you. Two questions. Would the president support the Senate ending the legislative filibuster to end the shutdown?
This is something I haven't heard the president talk about much, so I don't want to speak on him for it. I'll let him answer that question himself.
And do you have an update on the NASA administrator nominee? Do you plan to nominate anyone soon? Or does the president nominate anyone soon? Sorry.
I'll leave that to the president himself. He'll make a decision in due time, and when he does, you will hear directly from him, as you always do. We'll give our friends in the back a chance. Yes.
As you mentioned at the top of the briefing, USDA has warned that it will run out of funds to pay full SNAP benefits next month if the shutdown continues. Senator Hawley is floating a bill that would ensure SNAP benefits are continued to pay during the shutdown. Would the president support such a move? And you also announced that the administration was using tariff revenue to keep WIC going during the shutdown. How long will that last? And is anything similar being considered for SNAP?
Yes, the administration would absolutely support that legislation. We hope that it would come over the finish line, but the bill that will get everyone paid and put everyone back to work is the clean continuing resolution. That's what the president and Republicans want to see. Ed, go ahead, Ed.
Thanks, Carolyn. On the Russian sanctions again, how much pressure do you think that this sanctioning these two Russian companies actually puts on President Putin? Because the last administration sanctioned two other oil companies. So how much economic pressure is this really?
A lot. If you read the sanctions and look at them, they're pretty hefty. And I saw some international news out of China this morning that they're scaling back oil purchases from Russia. We know India has done the same at the request of the president. The president has also pushed European countries, our allies, to please stop their purchases of Russian oil as well. So it's full court press for sure, and we expect that these sanctions are going to do harm, as the Secretary of Treasury said yesterday.
Could there be more? Is this just the first step, or could there be more sanctions?
I'll leave that to the president to decide. Sure.
Video or heard the NBA gambling, involved in the gambling issue there. Does the president gamble? What does he think about that?
You know, I'm not sure. I don't think he does. I've been with him quite some time, and I have not seen him gamble before. I don't think he's a big gambler, but you can ask him yourself for next time you have a chance to, Ed. Go ahead.
Thank you, Carolyn. I've got two
Hi,
quick
Jake,
questions.
and then we'll go to you. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Two quick questions. Back to the ballroom. It is a very spectacular ballroom, according to the renderings. And if it's half as nice as the one at Mar-a-Lago, then future presidents are really going to appreciate it.
They will. Thank you, Jake.
First of all, is there like an official name? Like, are we calling it the Trump Ballroom, or does the president have a vision for what the name for the ballroom is going to be?
There will be an official name. I will let the president announce that once he firmly decides on it.
Question is, looking at these renderings, and it kind of got me thinking, he's likely going to go down as the greatest builder of this era, and you've been in on a lot of those meetings with him. Has, to your knowledge, has the subject of rebuilding the Holy Temple in Jerusalem come up?
It has not. No. It has not. I don't. I'm sorry, Jake. Go ahead.
Caroline, on the CZ pardon, could this clear the way for Binance to resume U.S. operations?
I won't get ahead of that. That's something for Treasury or the Departments of Commerce to comment on, so you're welcome to ask them.
And then one follow-up question. Any more details on the president's Walter Reed visit. The readout from his doctor mentioned advanced imaging. What procedure was he referring to?
Advanced imaging is something that presidents receive and people receive when they go to the doctor. And so we provide a detailed readout of that physical, and I would encourage you back to that. Presidents and I don't know the exact imaging that took place, but as the physician's note said, the president is in incredibly good shape, and I think that's evidenced here every single day. Danny.
Caroline. Back to the ballroom, I'm afraid. I just wanted to ask, because in July, the White House said that it would cost $200 million. Yesterday, the president said $300 million. Is $300 million now the operative figure, and why did it go up by so much?
$300 million is the figure, and again, it's not going to cost the taxpayers a dime. So we look forward to this project continuing, and we will continue to keep everyone apprised on it. Perhaps the president will even bring you all out to see it one day at the appropriate time. You're also going to hear from the president directly in about an hour. He's hosting an event with the Homeland Security Task Force. This was a newly created federal task force that the president and his law enforcement team have put together. I would encourage you all to tune in to the remarks. They have really done a tremendous job at refocusing how federal law enforcement and local law enforcement work together. There will be some local sheriffs and law enforcement officials in attendance as well, and they'll be talking about the success and the many arrests they have made of drug traffickers and cartel members all across the country by just simply working together. So we will see you at the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Caroline.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. You were just watching White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt taking reporter questions on a wide range of topics, including the new ballroom at the White House, saying that there is an official name to it, but she's going to wait for the president to officially announce it. Now, a Senate bill to pay military members and other essential federal employees during the government shutdown has failed. Senators voted today on the Shutdown Fairness Act. It would have paid active duty service members and federal employees who are accepted or performing emergency work during the shutdown. This would have included the Capitol Police, air traffic controllers, park rangers, ICE and Border Patrol agents, and more. The bill was sponsored by Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Lawmakers mostly voted along party lines, with Democrats blocking the bill in a vote of 54 to 45. It needed 60 yes votes to pass. 3 Democratic senators voted in favor of the measure: Senators John Ossoff, Raphael Warnock, and John Fetterman. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has declared a state of emergency to provide hunger relief for his state. His declaration comes as Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits run out on November 1st. Youngkin said the move was in response to the government shutdown, which he blamed on Democrats. The Republican governor added that he believed Democrats were using hungry Virginians as leverage in negotiations. Youngkin said, quote, "This is an extraordinary action and is only necessary because of the shamelessness of congressional Democrats." Youngkin called on Virginia's Democrat Senators Mark Warner and Tim Kaine to vote to pass a continuing resolution to open the government. The governor added, quote, "The Commonwealth will provide food benefits until congressional Democrats put the interests of Virginians in need ahead of their politics." New York City mayoral candidates sparred for the second time last night, with all 3 contenders trading lighthearted jabs in their final pitches to voters. NTD's Arlen Richards was there and now shares some of the takeaways.
It was a night of last impression on Wednesday evening as candidates for New York City mayor made their final pitches to New Yorkers in their second debate before early voting. All 3 contenders made their enthusiastic bids before a crowded auditorium of voters who often cheered and clapped. Wednesday's debate came as Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa faces a growing number of calls to drop out of the race. He vowed to stay in and allow New Yorkers to decide. Sliwa made enthusiastic and sometimes humorous jabs at his opponents in a last push to get voters on his side.
It's us versus them. It's us versus the insiders and the billionaires. It's us versus Cuomo. It's us versus Zorhan. Andrew, you didn't leave. You fled from being impeached by the Democrats in the state legislature.
Meanwhile, top contenders Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani exchanged heated jabs in their final pleas to New Yorkers.
My critiques of the politics of the past is right here on the stage. You can see in Andrew Cuomo someone who had 10 years to deliver on so much of what he's spoken about.
You have never had a job. You've never accomplished anything. There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification for 8.5 million lives.
The first question posed to candidates focused on the federal raid in New York City's Chinatown neighborhood on Tuesday that led to the arrest of 9 street vendors. All 3 candidates agreed that the federal government shouldn't get involved in local matters, but they had slightly different views on how the mayor should handle it.
I've had a lot of dealings with President Trump, and there's only one way to deal with him. He puts his finger in your chest, and you have to put your finger right back in his chest.
Mamdani said the city shouldn't be collaborating with the federal government like the current mayor does.
What we need to do is actually pass the street vending reform bills that have been in the city council, some of which that this mayor has actually overridden.
Sliwa said there's no communication between local authorities and the feds.
But we can't tolerate citizens attacking our federal law enforcement forces in the street because then that will just lead to anarchy.
At a press conference following the debate, Sliwa said the NYPD didn't show up because they were hiding behind the sanctuary city law. According to Homeland Security, those arrested were illegal immigrants from West Africa. Moderators covered a number of general topics such as rising housing costs and policing. There also were questions designed for each candidate. For example, they said Mamdani criticizes others but avoids answering questions. Cuomo is viewed as unethical, and Sliwa is a character. Most recent polls show Mamdani is still leading the pack, with Sliwa a distant third. As New Yorkers head to the polls on Saturday for early voting, they will have to make some tough decisions between an embattled former governor, a character icon of the city, and a self-described democratic socialist. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And now we have some shocking news today. Some NBA players and a coach are being arrested as part of a wide range of investigations into illegal sports betting. For more on this news, we're being joined now by NTD's Dave Martin. So Dave, good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Don. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. So what are we looking at here? Can you break this down for us?
Yeah, it seems, the pair of investigations, this was illegal sports betting and rigged poker games, as you said. Now, both were allegedly backed by the mafia, according to investigators. It's the latter here, rigged poker games that Portland Trailblazers current head coach Chauncey Billups was allegedly involved with. Now, authorities say it was a scheme to rig underground poker games backed by the mafia. They said the scheme targeted victims who were lured to participate in rigged games with the chance to play alongside a celebrity. Now, this is where Billups comes in. Billups was allegedly one of those celebrities. Now, the games were then allegedly rigged using altered card shuffling machines. There was hidden cameras in poker chip trays, special sunglasses, even X-ray equipment built into the tables to read poker cards. I mean, I had no idea such things existed. But Billups, though, he's better known for his years as an NBA player. Played with the Detroit Pistons for a number of years, won an NBA title with them. He's a very respected coach and player in the league.
So there were actually other people involved in this, and one person I want to focus on as well is, what about the charges against Terry Rozier, who is, currently playing for the Miami Heat? What do they allege that he did?
Yeah, he's accused of the illegal sports betting part, specifically using private insider information. Now, they allege that Rozier and others had access to inside information that, only players and coaches would have, that would have affected, the outcome of a game or an individual's performance. And they exchanged that they exchanged that information for either a flat fee or a percentage of the profits. Now, in 2023, sportsbooks in several states flagged suspicious betting on Rozier's statistics on a single game, a prop bet it's called. Now, there was a surge of bets that came in on the under for his points, rebounds, and assists, so much so that they actually halted the betting on that. Then in the actual game, Rozier played just 10 minutes, which is not very long, left the game citing a foot injury. Now, the NBA looked into that matter, though. They found that no league rules were broken. It's unclear, though, if this is something that the investigators are looking into. Now, in all, there were 34 people arrested for these two schemes. A couple were charged in actually both schemes, the sports betting and rigged poker games.
Okay, so I'm not very a sports guy. You know, if I ask a question that seems kind of obvious, I ask you to forgive me on that. But when they say insider information, what could that be referring to?
You know, I think that could be a lot of things. It's a good question, though. I would probably say player availability would be the #1 thing that, you know, a player or coach could have access to that maybe the public wouldn't. And that could be, you know, themselves being available or a fellow player or maybe being injured, I guess. You know, that's one reason the league really forbids gambling on games within the league. You cannot do it at all. But let's actually listen here to what U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Joseph Nocella, said today about that.
The non-public information included when specific players would be sitting out future games or when they would pull themselves out early for purported injuries or illnesses. They relied on corrupt individuals, including Jones and Rozier. They also misused information obtained through long-standing friendships that they had with NBA players and coaches. And in at least one instance, they got their information by threatening a current player, Porter, because of his pre-existing gambling debts. Defendants used this non-public information to place hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent bets, mostly in the form of prop bets on individual player performance. The bets were placed through online sports books and also in person at casinos. The defendants relied on a network of straw bettors to place the maximum amount of bets to increase their potential profits. Most of these bets succeeded, and the intended losses were in the millions of dollars.
Now, he mentioned a name there that was Porter. He was talking about Jonte Porter. Now, he's the one who had apparently had pre-existing gambling debts. Now, in 2024, Porter was banned from the league for life for his role in a gambling scheme around individual player prop bets. These prop bets were very similar to that Rozier case I was talking about earlier, where it was a game that had heavy betting on the under for player statistics. And then Porter left that game early, ensuring that he wouldn't get over those numbers. Another name he mentioned there, Jones, as former NBA player, current assistant coach Damon Jones. Jones was also arrested Thursday. He's one of 3 people allegedly involved in both cases. That's, you know, the insider information about the NBA games and those rigged poker games there.
So these people, including the current coach, Billup, and the current player, Rozier, what would this mean for their careers now that they're charged with this?
Yeah, well, obviously, means bad things for their careers. I mean, I would expect the team is eventually going to come out and say that, you know, they're suspended indefinitely pending the investigation, for one thing. Now, if it comes out like it's like with Porter, where they find out that he, you know, they find on their own that he bet against the league, it's undoubtedly a lifetime ban. I mean, that's just across all sports. If you bet against your own team, then the fans are going to think, you know, every game is rigged. These aren't real outcomes. This is fake stuff going on here. You'd be done for life. If it's for this, where it's, you know, in trouble with the FBI for something, it's certainly going to be a bad look for them, but it wouldn't be like a lifetime ban, I wouldn't think. But it's certainly nothing good is going to come from this. Now, right now, like you said, Rozier, he's in a contract that he plays for the Miami Heat. The guy is 30 years old. He's a very good player. I'll be very interested to see what the NBA does. I mean, previously, they've tried to, you know, kind of separate themselves from sports betting, but in recent years, with laws being lax, they've actually gotten a lot more cozier. So it'll be interesting to see the NBA's reaction to this.
Well, okay. Keep us updated on the situation as more things develop, and looking forward to talking to you again. Thank you.
I will, Dylan. Thank you very much.
Thanks. The government shutdown could soon impact American women and children. A nonprofit group is warning that millions of people enrolled in the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, may not receive food aid in November. The National WIC Association says that millions of U.S. families could have their access to the WIC program cut off as early as November 1st. That's unless the federal government provides emergency relief. The WIC Association describes the program as a lifeline for nearly 7 million pregnant and postpartum women, infants, and young children. SNAP benefits are also at risk. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin just declared a state of emergency to allow the state to cover any shortfall until the federal government reopens. Multiple states have warned that SNAP benefits could run out starting on November 1st if the shutdown persists. Some states have said that the lapse in funding has forced officials to delay payments approved on or after October 16th. Joining us now to discuss this is Hadley Manning, Senior Fellow for Culture and Family at Independent Women and a Blankley Fellow at the Steamboat Institute. And we have George Carrillo, the former Democratic candidate for governor of Oregon and former director of social determinants of health for Oregon. So good afternoon. Thank you both for joining us today. Hadley, start us off here with WIC. What exactly do American families on the program receive, and what could they face if they don't receive this aid?
Sure. WIC is a program that's intended to provide nutritional assistance to pregnant women, to nursing women, to postpartum women, and to their infant children and young children. This is a program that is funded by the federal government, administered by states. I believe that Governor Youngkin's doing the right thing here by making sure that vulnerable Virginian women and children who rely on this program aren't being held hostage to the debate that's taking place in Washington, D.C. over the budget. But it is a critical program. It's one that provides infant formula, baby food, and other supports to women and children.
Okay, George, now to you. Are you concerned about this situation? How concerned are you? Should the families be worried?
I am concerned with the situation because it's going to affect about 40 million Americans. We know that the SNAP benefit program is a proven method. It definitely provides a better quality of life for individuals, especially for our children. It lowers their obesity levels. It provides them with the cognitive function that they need in order to be productive members of society. It shows that it increases their grades. It's a major concern. I think right now, for me, the additional concern is that this is continuing to lapse, this government shutdown. We really need to get both Democrats and Republicans to start speaking and coming up with a solution, a temporary solution for these subsidies, so that way we can open up the government, but one side has to start compromising with the other.
Okay, Hadley, what do you think about the situation? How do we get Democrats and Republicans working together to try to reopen the government so that the American people at the end of the day are not suffering because of politics?
You know, I'm fully aware that on a TV program, we're supposed to resort to our partisan corners, and I'm supposed to call this the Schumer shutdown, and I'm supposed to blame Democrats, but I'm going to go with a different take here, and I'm going to zoom out to a 30,000-foot view. The American people are very divided, and that is reflected in Congress. That's one reason why we don't see a lot of legislation getting passed through the traditional method of getting supermajorities in both houses and getting bills to the president's desk. Instead, this puts enormous pressure on our budgeting process, because with a simple majority, by passing a budget, both sides have been guilty in the past of trying to get their policy priorities through. Right now, it just so happens that Democrats are the team that want to keep subsidies in place that were intentionally originally passed as temporary enhanced subsidies during the COVID pandemic to increase the amount that taxpayers are covering on the premiums for people who buy their insurance through the Affordable Care Act marketplaces. If we pass a clean CR at this time, that simply means that those subsidies don't continue. It changes the premium payment for people who have, for example, 400% of the federal poverty level or more. But there are other policy priorities like WIC, like SNAP, that Republicans and Democrats have long agreed should get funding, and there's no changes to those programs here. So in order for those programs and our military members and other federal employees to continue to get paid, for our government to begin functioning again, that's where the tension is. We have to resolve whether we want to see our budgeting process become one where we debate policy priorities like these subsidies for ACA consumers, or whether we want to go ahead and pass a clean budget and have that debate separate from the budget process. Now, I realize this means it's going to make it very difficult for Democrats to keep those subsidies in place. They're using the leverage that they have right now during the budgeting process to try to keep those subsidies in place. But they're unfortunately putting the rest of America in a position where other programs that aren't up for debate are now facing problems and budget shortfalls as a result.
Okay, so George, you heard what Hadley said. What is your point of view on that?
So I believe that this is where Republicans need to negotiate with Democrats. When we think about the subsidies, the Affordable Care Act more than doubled when these subsidies were put into place, and it's working. We're being able to provide affordable accessibility to healthcare, which produces better outcomes. And so right now, without some sort of plan, what I'm waiting for is Republicans to come up and say, look, we have a plan. We were proposing this plan during this time of shutdown, but they haven't proposed anything. They just want Democrats to sign off on the current bill the way it is. The subsidies will go away, and hoping that we're going to be able to negotiate something for longer term. My position on this is let's take the politics out of it. Let's provide some temporary subsidies right now so that way we can actually have a debate on what does the Affordable Care Act, how does that continue to be funded? How do we allow for accessibility to healthcare to be affordable? But we're not getting anywhere right now. The House is not in session. The Senate is not moving, in either direction. There is really no negotiations happening. It's sort of this tactics of who's going to blink first. And the casualties of this will be the American people, and both parties are going to suffer the consequences for their actions.
So Hadley, you can respond if you want to, but I want to ask you, are there some alternatives or anything else for states or families should the federal government not provide emergency relief as this shutdown continues?
With regard to other programs like WIC, like SNAP, I've seen governors like Governor Jared Polis in Colorado and Governor Glenn Youngkin in Virginia taking steps right now to make sure that states can cover any shortfalls for programs that are absolutely critical, like SNAP, like WIC. However, when it comes to the subsidies in the Affordable Care Act, which really are at the center of the debate in Washington, D.C. right now, there are some states that provide various other means for people to become insured. However, the biggest problem that Democrats face is that the Affordable Care Act made health insurance so expensive that in order for most people to be able to afford it, they need huge amounts of subsidies from taxpayers. When we talk about the enhanced subsidies that were passed during the COVID pandemic, this is just in addition to subsidies that had already been in existence on the books for people below a certain poverty, FPL, federal poverty level. So the biggest problem at the center of our healthcare debate right now is just how expensive the Affordable Care Act has made health insurance. And the solution that Democrats have come up with over time is the original subsidies in the ACA and additional enhanced subsidies. And if that's the direction that you want to go, if you want to keep pouring taxpayer subsidies into a fire, fueling an increasing fire in our healthcare system, we're just going to see costs continue to accelerate. And that affects Americans of all income levels, but it particularly affects those in the middle class who aren't eligible for Medicaid or other government supports, and they're having to go out and buy this very expensive health insurance on their own. So this is a problem created by the Affordable Care Act, owned completely by Democrats. It is not one that Republicans have had a chance to resolve, and it's not one that I think we should be using the budget process to resolve. If I agree with one thing that George said, it's let's take the politics out of it. And from my perspective, that means passing a clean CR, passing a clean budget, and having the debate about healthcare policy separate from the debate about whether our government should be open or not.
So, George, I think at the end of the day, it's about putting Americans first. So if we keep that in mind, what do you think is the long-term solution here?
Well, the long-term solution is we really need to be able to stabilize the Affordable Health Care Act. For years, Republicans have been trying to weaken that program. We need to also look at how do we have these bipartisan conversations? How do we come to a solution? How do we, reunite the American people, especially around the programs? All of our tax dollars are there to support our government, our way of life, and how we help out people that cannot currently afford like food and programs like the WIC benefit, accessibility to healthcare, accessibility to shelter, and financial security. These are all things that tax dollars go into that provide the quality of life that the American people know and love. But right now, we're letting our politics in the way of things. When Democrats put something forward, Republicans try to repeal it. And it's the same thing from the opposite side. We really need to start looking at what's not in the best interest of the party, but what's in the best interest of the people. And that's where our tax dollars should be going. That's where these conversations should be leading us to, because at the end of the day, we need to be able to provide a better quality of life for the American people, because this is our government.
So Hadley, I want to ask you the same question here. What is the long-term solution with, tens of millions of Americans dependent on these benefits and programs like SNAP and WIC?
Right. Well, I think at the heart of the debate that we're seeing over this budget, and more broadly speaking in our politics, is a question: do we want our safety net programs to target people who are truly in need, who are facing dire poverty, who can't afford food and shelter and healthcare and basic needs? Or do we want the government to be about funding these things for everybody? I mean, these enhanced premium subsidies that we're talking about were aimed at people in the middle class. They aren't aimed at people who are at the very bottom of the income ladder, and they aren't aimed at people who are eligible for Medicaid, which is the program that is intended to help people who otherwise truly can't afford health care. Initially, Medicaid was a program for pregnant women, for single parents, for people who were disabled and who couldn't go out and work and afford their own health care. So the question before Americans and the question before Congress is, do we want to be a country that provides a safety net, a true safety net for people who really have a need? Or do we want the government to be about providing every need for every person? And that's why Republicans, that's why conservatives have been trying to push back against the growth in these programs, because not only does it change our safety net into more of a hammock, but it also ultimately harms the people for whom these programs were designed in the first place. And so the expansion of these programs is something that ultimately somebody has to stand against, not just because we're trying to protect taxpayers or save money, but because we're ultimately trying to protect people for whom the safety net programs were designed in the first place.
Okay, George, I just want to ask you one last question here. What advice would you give regular Americans, to talk to their local lawmakers about this situation? What message should regular Americans send to them?
I believe that they need to start communicating with their lawmakers, especially Republicans, and saying, you know what, you need to come back into session, especially in the House. We need to start having conversations of how do we open up the government again? How do we keep the healthcare incentives in place as a temporary solution for us to be able to come up with a permanent, more long-term sustainable plan for the Affordable Care Act? We have to also let lawmakers know that these programs do help. Programs like SNAP and WIC, southern states really are affected by what will happen after November 1. They need to start speaking up, because this is not about being a red state or a blue state with these programs. These programs do work. We need to fund them. We need to ensure that we're not letting politics come in the middle of saving lives, because this is what these programs do. They save American lives, and that's what we need to continue to focus on, and that's what the messaging needs to be to these politicians, to get their act together and open up the government.
Well, all right. I think it was a good discussion today. Hadley, George, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
President Donald Trump calls off a surge of federal agents to San Francisco. San Francisco's mayor said he had spoken to Trump about the city's progress against crime. Stay tuned for that.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
President Trump says he's withholding a planned surge of federal agents into San Francisco after speaking with the mayor. San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie confirmed he had spoken with Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Customs and Border Protection agents had already begun arriving to support federal immigration enforcement efforts. Protesters were gathering outside a Coast Guard base where they were located. Lurie posted on X that he told Trump last night that San Francisco was making progress in combating crime. The mayor said, quote, visitors are coming back, buildings are getting leased and purchased, and workers are coming back to office. Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, I spoke to Mayor Lurie last night, and he asked very nicely that I give him a chance to see if he can turn it around. New York's Attorney General is asking the public to send photos, videos, and other evidence of federal immigration raids for review. The appeal comes just one day after an ICE operation targeting street vendors in Manhattan's Chinatown erupted into chaos as protesters clashed with federal agents. Letitia James said every new New Yorker has the right to live without fear or intimidation, but the Department of Homeland Security called her request an obstruction of justice. The comments follow Tuesday's immigration enforcement operation on Canal Street, a stretch of Manhattan known for its street vendors and counterfeit goods. Federal officials say 14 people were arrested, including illegal immigrants from Mali, Senegal, and Guinea, some with prior criminal records. 4 people were arrested for allegedly assaulting law enforcement and another for obstruction. DHS says several of those taken into custody had previous charges ranging from robbery and domestic violence to counterfeiting and drug offenses. The number of children in New York City public schools dealing with homelessness is reaching a record high. The problem was even brought up during the New York City mayoral debate. NTD Sean Marshall has more details on the issue.
The number of homeless children in public schools in New York City has been rising. That's according to a report released by the Advocates for Children of New York.
This is the 10th year in a row where there has been over 100,000 students identified as homeless.
But in 2024 to 2025, while overall enrollment numbers declined, the number of homeless or displaced public school student cases rose above 150,000 for the first time ever. What could be contributing to these alarming numbers? And are there fixes to some of the issues that are not being implemented?
Based on what we hear from families directly, as well as data from the Department of Homeless Services, that the lack of affordable housing, fleeing domestic violence are both two of the top reasons why families give that they are seeking emergency shelter.
Jennifer Pringle, the project director at Advocates for Children of New York, is able to put some reasoning behind what's going on.
Because if we want to break the cycle of family homelessness, we have to make sure that students get the support they need in school so that they can be successful and graduate and go on and live full independent lives and never return to homelessness. Students who don't get a high school diploma are 4.5 times more likely to experience homelessness as young adults.
Pringle also mentioned another study on New York data. It found that students in shelters who don't graduate from high school are more than 2 times more likely to experience homelessness again as adults. The homelessness problem was a topic for the second debate for New York City Mayor. The outdated transportation system for displaced children was mentioned.
Right now we have school bus contracts that are over 45 years old. 45 years old. That do not meet the needs of today's students, which means that students in temporary housing oftentimes have ridiculously long commutes to get to school. This should not be happening. The city should rebid the contracts, get new contracts in place that better serve today's students and especially students in temporary housing. Second thing, the state also plays a role in this. Right now, school districts do not get any additional funding to meet the educational needs of students in temporary housing. This should change.
The overall rate of student homelessness rose in every borough relative to 2023 to 2024 and was once again the highest in the Bronx, followed by Manhattan. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
The FBI announced charges in an alleged sports gambling scheme. Joining us to discuss is Gerard Filitti, Senior Counsel at the Lawfare Project. So, Gerard, good afternoon. Could you describe for us the scale and complexity of this? Because it involves several high-profile figures across the NBA and spans years of investigation and across many states.
That's right. This is a very interesting case that stems out of 2 different investigations by the Justice Department, both coinciding with some people who are apparently basketball players or associated with the NBA. This involved gambling and it involved betting on sports. Allegations are that members of the NBA or a coach in this case, or people affiliated with the game, gave inside information that was used in illegal betting, meaning that they gave information on things like player lineup or who would be sitting a game out, things that would give bettors a comparative advantage, and that this was used to commit wire fraud, that this was a conspiracy to commit money laundering, these are the main charges against the basketball players. And this is one of the 2 cases. The other one involves a tie-in with crime families in New York, the mafia, and illegal gambling that was taking place there.
Could you talk to us about the potential impacts or ripple effects this may have on the NBA?
This potentially has a huge ripple effect on the NBA. It gives rise to questions about the integrity of some of its players and the extent to which information about these games have been leaked, not just by the people who are indicted in this case, but potentially by other people associated with the NBA. This may very well be a much larger scale issue of inside knowledge that's being released that may benefit competitors or may benefit bettors. So this is really a black mark in terms of the integrity of the NBA, and they will have a lot of investigating and cleaning house to do internally.
And what about how serious these charges are? What could the suspects be facing?
A lot of what they can be facing is jail time, and not insubstantial jail time. We're talking about felonies that carry years of incarceration. The government is also explicitly looking at asset forfeiture, meaning that they can be on the hook for millions of dollars in fines and restitution in terms of what money was made in these gambling rings. So there is both the prospect of jail time, but also of financial penalties that are very significant.
So based on the announcement earlier today, apparently money laundering was part of it as well. Can you talk to us about how do prosecutors trace illegal gambling profits that are laundered?
Well, this is a good old-fashioned investigation like we've seen classically coming out of mafia investigations. What they're looking at are wire transfers, wire communications, bank deposits. They're looking to see who made money on these games, these sports games, or at the casino, at the gambling table for the mafia-controlled games. And they're looking to see what happened to that money. So it's a thorough, old-fashioned, and lengthy investigation following the trail of money from the source into how it was deposited or laundered. And oftentimes the laundering is merely the fact that the money was not disclosed, that there was no disclosure to the IRS, for example, or that it was illegally declared to be some other kind of earning and not earnings off of gamblings or off of selling inside information. So this was a meticulous investigation following the money and the chain of communications that all of these people were allegedly involved in.
So Gerard, I was talking about this topic with our in-house sports expert, and I'm wondering if you can speak to this as well, because both an active player and an active NBA head coach were arrested. So I'm wondering, how deep does this issue run inside the NBA?
Well, that's really the million-dollar question, and I'm sure that the NBA has already started its own investigation with its own investigators and legal team to try to suss out exactly what the damage is, whether there are other teams and other players that are involved. This is, of course, a very serious allegation. There are contract provisions within the NBA that prohibit this type of behavior. So we're not just looking at criminal penalties that the government might impose when these people, or if these people rather, are convicted at trial, but they can be sued by the NBA. The NBA can discipline them. They can be terminated. There can be consequences for the actions that they took, which violates the terms of their contracts. So the NBA will be taking a close look, not just at what this player and this coach did, but at what other teams are doing as well to make sure that the game's integrity is restored.
So another point here, Gerard, and you already know this, there were many members of the New York's mafia families also indicted together in this single case, right? Can you talk to us about the significance here?
Well, there are actually two separate cases, but this is stemming from the same investigations, and there's crossover in some of the people involved. The case involving the basketball players is a little bit separate than the one that involves some basketball players and the mob. So the case involving the mafia gambling involved poker games that were being illegally conducted under the auspices of 4 or 5 of the crime families in New York. The Gambino, Lucchesi, Bonanno, and Genovese crime families were conducting poker games in the Hamptons, New York City, Miami, and Las Vegas. And they were essentially cheating. They were using technology and other means to rig the game, and then also extorting players through threats and robbing them of their money when they wouldn't pay up. So this is old-fashioned mafia action, basically to controlling illegal gambling operations. We've seen prosecutions like this before. What's different here is that we do have some people related to the NBA, basketball player, who was involved in this as well.
So, you know, some of us were actually surprised that the mob was involved in this morning's announcement. Can you talk to us about how does modern organized crime differ from what we've seen historically?
Modern organized crime has gotten much more sophisticated in the way they move money. It's gotten much more sophisticated in the things that it engages in. It launders money more efficiently through businesses. And in many ways, it has moved on from some of its traditional criminal practices to higher-end white-collar crimes, to controlling and extorting businesses, through leveraging financial trades as well. But at its root, Cosa Nostra, the mafia, still engages in the same type of illegal gambling, control of trade, control of extortion, robbery that it always has. This is why I'm saying that this is very much an old-fashioned type of case where the mafia is holding poker games and it's robbing its customers by cheating them as well. This is classic mafia behavior, if you will, that we've seen for many, many years.
All right, Gerard, just one final question. Can you tell us what is the message that is being sent today in the announcement?
The message that's being sent are twofold. One is that no one is above the law, that even if you are a basketball player or a coach, you will be investigated for your conduct, and if it is found to be illegal, you will be prosecuted. So even if you're a sports hero, that does not make you immune from following the law. The other message is that the FBI is very capable of continuing to put pressure on organized crime, including the mafia in New York City, on its activities, and that they need to be looking over their shoulder if they continue engaging in these illegal acts, because the FBI will catch them and they will be brought to justice.
Okay, Gerard, good to speak with you. Thank you for giving us your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
U.S. sanctions on Russian oil appear to be effective. Two of its top importers are said to be pulling back their purchases. Don't go away for that after this short break.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Or how did I get here? I can see now.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day. Becoming a better version of myself. To be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just growing. He's becoming his own person. Man, first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
My name's Stacy, I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020.
We were adopted in 2019.
And we were adopted in 2021.
We had a house, and it sounds crazy, but it wasn't a home. The one thing that Jake and Emma brought is it became a home.
When I met Dakota, he had just turned 14.
You weren't there for the first this and the first that. I missed the first words, but we got a lot of other firsts.
Watching her say, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my license. And she's like, I passed. And I'm like, girl.
See them grow. It is.
They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
You and you. Kids in the middle.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete, but it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
The Treasury Department says the nation's budget deficit from April through September was the lowest in 6 years, totaling $468 billion, down nearly 40% from a year ago. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent credits stronger revenues and tighter federal spending, calling it proof the administration's fiscal policies are working. This comes soon after the Treasury Department reported that the government posted a budget surplus of $198 billion in September, the largest of any surplus in September on record. But the good news comes alongside a sobering milestone. The nation's debt has now topped $38 trillion, just 2 months after crossing $37 trillion. Bessent says the White House remains focused on lowering interest rates and bringing the deficit to GDP ratio down to 3% within the next few years. It could be time for would-be home buyers to get new keys as they gain some leverage in the real estate market. Mortgage rates have dipped to their lowest level in more than a year. Freddie Mac reported that the 30-year fixed mortgage rate is now at 6.19%. This comes as home prices are softening across major metro areas. Redfin shared that the typical home sold for 1.4% below asking price last month. This is the biggest September discount since before the pandemic-era price surge. Another report from the National Association of Realtors revealed that September sales of existing homes rose by the fastest pace in 7 months. Global oil prices rose sharply today. The jump comes as traders worry about a squeeze on global supply after the U.S. imposed sanctions on 2 Russian oil companies. Here's more.
Oil prices surged almost 5% early Thursday. Markets reacted after the U.S. put sanctions on leading Russian suppliers Rosneft and Lukoil over the Ukraine war. One analyst said the sanctions mean refineries in China and India will need to find other suppliers for oil, or they risk exclusion from the Western banking system. Both countries are major buyers of Russian oil. The US said it was prepared to take further action as it called on Moscow to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine. Britain sanctioned Rosneft and Lukoil last week. EU countries have approved a 19th package of sanctions against Russia, which includes a ban on imports of the country's LNG. Brent and West Texas Intermediate futures rose by more than $2 a barrel after the sanctions were announced. Analysts argue the impact of sanctions on oil markets will depend on how India reacts and if Russia finds alternative buyers. India became the largest buyer of discounted seaborne Russian crude after Moscow began its war in Ukraine.
The U.S. oil sanctions on Russian oil are putting pressure on its top importers. The U.S. has imposed sanctions on 2 of Moscow's biggest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. Multiple sources told Reuters that Chinese state oil companies have suspended purchases of seaborne Russian oil, at least for the short term, due to concerns over sanctions. The sources said this includes PetroChina, Sinopec, CNOOC, and Zhenhua Oil. Also, to comply with U.S. sanctions, India, the largest buyer of seaborne Russian oil, is set to sharply cut crude imports from Moscow. This sharp drop in oil demand will put a strain on Moscow's oil revenues and push up global prices for non-sanctioned oil. President Trump is pardoning convicted Binance founder Changpeng Zhao. That's according to the White House, which says the previous administration prosecuted Zhao in a war on cryptocurrency. Zhao had to step down as the chief of Binance when the company agreed to settle with the U.S. government worth more than $4 billion. Prosecutors agreed to end a years-long probe into misconduct at the world's largest crypto exchange. Trump's pardon paves the way for Zhao to return to the business he helped found in 2017. He has already served his time in prison after a judge sentenced him to 4 months. President Trump makes announcements on cartels and human trafficking at the White House. We're going to bring it to you live, so stay with us.
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Come in now for 65th anniversary savings all over the store. Like this oversized sofa in an ultra soft fabric with thick premium gel cushions and 5 throw pillows. Anniversary priced at just $9.99. That's an incredible value. Just one of over 100 great sofas in stock and ready for you to enjoy tonight with fast and easy financing and free delivery. Don't miss out on 65th anniversary savings happening now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95.